Should we read anything into Joson Sanon's tweet as Arizona basketball fans?
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit about Joson Sanon, something that we do need to be talking about because he put out an interesting tweet that people have been asking me about nonstop. Basically, it's this. He said that he had a great meeting with Caleb Love and big plans coming on the way. And that is that he is going and basically insinuating that he will be coming to the University of Arizona. Here's where I stand on this. I would love to be wrong. Just talk, knowing the situation, knowing how things are. If Joson Sanon shows up to campus and plays for the University of Arizona with KJ Lewis and Caleb Love on the roster, I will freely admit that I was completely wrong. And there would be a variety of reasons for that. But first, I do not believe that is the case. I believe that Joson Sanon wants to get when Joson Sanon committed to the U of A, why don't we just go back in time a little bit? The first thing that he committed to the U of A, and a big part of it was that he, like everybody else, was under the impression that Caleb Love was going to be going on to the NBA, and it did not appear that Caleb Love would be coming back to the university for another year. Now, you got to remember on this one that I think it is fascinating that Arizona kind of is at the point when Arizona is kind of at the point where it can kind of turn down players if you want to, or it can just take some more players and just be kind of, cool with that. And he is, that's kind of the way it is with Joson Sanon. He's a very, very good talent. Not only is he good talent, he is a player that you could easily see in the NBA. But guess what? Caleb Love, you are going to take a fifth year of Caleb Love all day over a 1 year of Joson Sanon. We have seen this time and time and time and time again. You just don't know with a freshman what they are going to be able to do. Now, I know a lot of people are upset or, expect that. I know a lot of people expect that, Caleb Love, he didn't play well to end last season. That's very true. Can't dispute any of that. Caleb Love did not perform well to end the season, but you've also got to take things in totality. Caleb Love also was one of the 10 best players in college basketball last year. He made the Wooden Award list, and he was just very good for what Arizona wanted to do. And I think the thing that also kind of impressed people, especially folks like Tommy Lloyd, is how he fit into Arizona. He fit in very, very well. The coaching staff likes him a great deal. He was a hard worker. He went about things the right way, and he was a good face for the program. Again, didn't get that on the court it did not end well, but I'm going to say this, though. I'm going to give him a little bit of a pass for this, in that at North Carolina, too, I know it was up and down, but he also got into a Final Four and had some huge games in that process. So that's kind of where it is with Caleb Love. Now, going back to Joson Sanon, he keeps talking about that he had a great talk with Caleb Love, and that he had a great talk with Caleb Love, and that, they're on the same page. But he's also you're kind of forgetting another player in this equation, and that is KJ Lewis, who we will be returning to in a second. And KJ Lewis will be starting. Now, if Joson Sanon wants to be a super sixth man, awesome. Now, I will say this. If Caleb Love were to stay in the draft, then obviously it goes without saying Joson Sanon fits in perfectly there. But I am also not under the impression that Caleb Love is going to be staying in the draft. Again, things could change, could be totally wrong here. Joson Sanon could be your starting shooting guard next year. No harm, no foul across the board. I think that we would all be more than okay with it. But Caleb Love is obviously the priority. He did not, and honestly, if you're Caleb Love, I don't know why you wouldn't come back, to be honest with you, because this is you can take advantage of your COVID year. And keep in mind, too, this is also a team where you have you've got a lot of talent and a lot of different pieces that kind of fit in very well next to each other. But Love's going to be that dude. He's going to start. And the reason, though, that he's coming back, like we talked about, if he does, is NIL. NIL changed everything. And I think people got to understand that if you've got another year where you can come back and make six-figure money, why wouldn't you come back? I mean, you can make a lot more money coming back than you could overseas at this stage. And I think Caleb Love's the epitome of that example. Caleb Love, I believe, has the potential to play in the NBA, but there's certain things that he's just got to get better at. And he was more efficient this year. Obviously, you love that. But I think that he leaves a lot on the table, to be honest. And again, this is coming from somebody that really likes Caleb Love, but he leaves a lot on the table. I wish that he got to the free throw line more. And because, again, it's not like he's some stiff that has to just roam around the perimeter and can't shoot. The dude knows how to play or how to get to the basket, and he's shown it. He's athletic, he's strong, and when he gets going and when he gets downhill, there's not a lot of better players in the country. So I'd like to be able to see him. I'd like to see him really kind of be able to, up the ante there. And I think if he does that, then I think that there's the potential for him to play in the NBA. I really do. But he's going to have to I think that he's got to be able to do that. I think it makes sense for all sides for him to come back. And if he comes back, then I think Arizona's a top 10 team in the country. You also got to remember, too, when you're dealing with freshmen, you have no clue what to expect. Some guys can come in like Mike Bibby and be one of the best players on the court against North Carolina. But we've also seen, too, top 10 players come in that just kind of weren't that good. I mean, look at Nico Mannion. I never really bought into Nico Mannion, but Nico Mannion just wasn't that good. And you would it's just kind of the way it is. You don't really know. Raleigh Alkins, Kobe Simmons, players like that. These are not, I can keep naming players that were solid, but were just not, huge difference makers. So, not everybody is DeAndre Ayton. And when you watch Joson Sanon, he is obviously very good, but he's also not one of those top 5 no-dub prospects, like a Mike Bibby, like a DeAndre Ayton, where you can pencil them in and be like, all right, man, they're going to be able to cause damage immediately. You don't see that with him. He's rated around 20th in the country. He's obviously a really good player, no doubt about it, but he's not a no-brainer. You take Caleb Love every single day of the week over him if it comes down to that. But again, I don't want to make it out like I'm not like I don't want Sanon to come here. If he wants to come here and be a sixth man off the bench, that would be absolutely fantastic. But knowing what's kind of going on behind the scenes, I don't really see that being the case. I will say again, though, this all does change if Caleb Love were to go off or were to, pursue a professional career. And at that point, then you're dealing with an entirely different animal. So we will see on that. But I'll believe it when I see it. But there's also a part to this roster that I think a lot of people are forgetting, and I think that we need to talk about. Well, not a lot of people are forgetting, but it's not really being addressed by Joson Sanon. But first, eBay Motors, my friends. eBay Motors, check it out. All kinds of good stuff at eBay Motors. We always say this. The great thing about eBay Motors is you can cut out the middleman. Listen. Everybody's been to been to a place where you're like, man, I feel like I'm getting screwed over by the people here. That is where eBay Motors steps in and say, enough of that. You do not need to be screwed over by these companies. You need to hop in here at eBay Motors, get your parts, and then take it to somebody that you appreciate, that you believe in. Because again, this day and age, people are always looking for a quick dollar. Don't give them the quick dollar. Take the quick dollar and keep it for yourself. eBay Motors, millions of parts for your MVP. Win every time with parts that fit your ride. Again, check it out, eBay Motors. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, let's talk about the elephant in the room that continues to not really be addressed by Joson Sanon, and that is KJ Lewis. I'd be stunned, absolutely stunned, if KJ Lewis is not back at the University of Arizona next year. KJ Lewis is starting. I can't say that in more certain terms than that. KJ Lewis is starting. He is an NBA player. I think he needs another year to be able to show people exactly what he can do. But KJ Lewis is 100% starting as a sophomore at the U of A. And there's a variety of reasons why he would start. First of all, he's really, really good. He fits in well with what Arizona wants to do. He fits in very well in the Big 12. He's big, he's strong, he's physical, he's got a real knack for the basketball, and he's a good kid that goes about doing things the right way. KJ Lewis is a starter if he is on this roster, and like I said, I would be stunned if he is not. So there, let's just go under the impression that KJ Lewis is back. So you got Jaden Bradley at the point, Caleb Love at the 2, KJ Lewis at the 3. Those three are locked in stone. And guess what? The other players are as well. You have with Trey Townsend, he's starting at the 4. Mount Crevis, he's starting at the 5. That's just the way that it is. So if Sanon were to come here, he'd be coming off the bench. But again, so when you see these tweets, though, you've got to remember. And it would change my mind a little bit if Sanon had said something to the effect of, I just talked with Caleb Love and talked with KJ Lewis, and we're all on board doing the same thing. Then it's a little bit different. But you're kind of ignoring the elephant in the room that both those wing spots are spoken for. And just like with Caleb Love, you take KJ Lewis over Joson Sanon because we've already seen what KJ Lewis can do. And what's really enticing about KJ Lewis is you can tell that he is just scratching the surface of what he can do as a basketball player. I mean, he came in this past year, and not a lot of people thought that he was going to be able to contribute immediately. And he said, poppycock, I will come in and I contribute immediately. And he looked really, really good in the process. And that his physicality, his strength, his athleticism, that's exactly what you want in the Big 12, where in the Big 12, and we'll talk about in a little bit, you're going to have 5 of the top 10 teams in the country there, including Arizona. You look at their preseason rankings, you're probably going to have Kansas at 1, and then you're going to have 3 or 4 other teams in Baylor, Iowa State, and Houston. Like I said, this is a loaded conference, and this is something where you want guys with experience and you want physical players that can come in and be contributors for you. And that's where I think that Arizona is in a very, very good spot. So those are the guys. Now look at the rest of it, and I'll tell you what, Anthony Del Orso, that was an insurance policy for the possibility of Joson Sanon not coming to the University of Arizona. Again, I'm not really breaking any news, but if he wants to come here and be the 6th man, that would be absolutely fantastic. But I do not, like I said, I do not necessarily see that being the case. The Big 12, though, like I said, is going to be loaded. You take KJ and you take Caleb Love every single day of the week, and then you'll kind of roll from there as far as, what you need, what you're expecting, et cetera, et cetera. But, well, like I said, I'll believe that one when I see it. But let's just say you do get Joson Sanon as a 6th man, then you're really, really cooking up, because then you bringing in an NBA player off the bench, somebody that you didn't really, and a guy who's a little bit older to begin with, in that he's a guy who, it's easy to see him being a one and done type. And I get people all the time that'll be like, well, maybe he's just looking at that Devin Booker type thing, where Devin Booker was at Kentucky, and then Devin Booker went off to, didn't necessarily start, and then he was a starter in the NBA, became Devin Booker. Yeah, but Arizona's also not Kentucky in that case. I mean, those Kentucky teams with Calipari, those teams were ridiculously loaded, and that was kind of what he sold them on. And he had a track record to say, listen, man, I got dudes that coming in here that are coming off the bench, and they're becoming starters in the NBA. It doesn't matter if you're starting or not, you're going to be a lottery pick. I mean, as much as we all love Arizona here, that's not really the case at this stage. So that's kind of where it's at. But on the court, like I said, Sanon's the goods. I mean, Sanon is really, really good. And not only is he really, really good, he's also the player that he's also a guy that you watch and you're like, man, all right, I see it. But I am still, like I said, I'm still under the impression, and I like I like Arizona's bench with or without Sanon. I think that it's a nice little combination. I wish that Arizona had another guard in place to be able to be that backup. I think you're probably going to look at Caleb Love as being that backup point guard. If Caleb Love is that backup point guard, then I think that you're, I think that's all right. But it also leads me to wonder why, Conrad Martinez is necessarily on the team, because, again, we're getting rid of roster filler, which I guess Philly B was kind of viewed as. And I think that's the case. So we will find that one. We will find that one out. But I do believe that this squad either way is loaded. And I trust also Tommy Lloyd. And I trust Tommy Lloyd. And I trust Tommy Lloyd in a big way because he is he's a dude that, like I said, we've talked about it before. He is he's a coach that just kind of takes inventory of things after a while. And if he, if he's able to do that, then I think we're probably in pretty good shape. I just don't believe that talking with people and, some people around that camp, I just don't trust this one, but we will find out. As far as Arizona, though, the one thing that this coaching staff really has going for it, and not only does it have going for it, it's pretty much been the case since he's been here, is these guys have pretty good chemistry with each other. And this is pretty much played out from the beginning. Tommy Lloyd knows what he's doing. He wants to put together a roster of good dudes. And generally when there's been guys that are not good fits, he's been able to, say with all due respect, probably better for you to go elsewhere. Kylan Boswell was the epitome of that. Kylan Boswell, a lot of talent. We saw it, but Kylan Boswell had a lot of other issues going on. Kirk Kriisa, was solid at times, but Kirk Kriisa was also somewhat of a distraction. And Lloyd, I think Lloyd genuinely liked both guys, but Lloyd also probably knew that these guys were not necessarily the ones that you want going forward. And I think Jaden Bradley is that dude. Jaden Bradley at the point guard spot, I think brings you something that Arizona has not had with Kylan Boswell or with Kirk Kriisa. He brings you a toughness. He brings you a team-first mentality. I mean, we saw that. I mean, anybody with eyes knows that he was better last year than Kylan Boswell, but he still chose to come on, or he still was okay coming off the bench and being that spark. That's the kind of players you want. And like I said, if Joson Sanon is cool coming off the bench and being that spark, then 100% will take that. We will, like I said, though, we will find that one out. That's going in, and we will find that out sooner than later. We're going to talk about those timelines here in a second. But first, Game Time, my friends. Check it out. Game Time. All kinds of great stuff at Game Time. The reason people use Game Time is because it works and it is fun. Download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, Game Time. Great stuff there. And what's cool about Game Time as well is that it works for you. It can work for you for sporting events. It can work for you for concerts. You name it, Game Time generally has it. I know a variety of people that have used Game Time, and they all come back and say that it worked swimmingly well for them. So check it out, Game Time. Another one where you will thank me later on this. Again, concerts, big NBA events, you name it, they got it. Download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. The other thing I like about this squad a great deal is the toughness that I think that you're going to see from this team. And let's be honest, this team is going to have to be tough because you're not going to be able to just kind of sail through like you have, in previous years, playing your ASUs and your Oregon States and your Stanfords and your Cals. Every game is going to be brutal, and that you're going to have grown men. And that's where another thing I like about this roster is you have grown men. You have grown men at the point guard spot, or at, pretty much across the board. Jaden Bradley is a grown man. You watch him, you know that. Caleb Love is a man. KJ Lewis is a man. Trey Townsend is a man. Mo Crevis has got to continue to get better, but he's got all that potential in the world. That's also why you brought in Tobe Awaka. Tobe Awaka is probably going to get you 6 points and 7 rebounds in 17 minutes. He's probably going to use a lot of fouls, but he's the kind of dude that you want in the Big 12. Carter Bryant has all kinds of Carter Bryant's just smooth. Carter Bryant's what an NBA player looks like. He is obviously has a ton of talent, very, very enticing. Carter Bryant again, and then Anthony Del Orso in a 12 to 13, 14 minute per game role. I mean, who's not going to rock the boat? I think you're more than okay with that, and that's why I think Tommy Lloyd's done a nice job with this roster and being able to get the talent in play for this roster. So again, with Joson Sanon, if he shows up here and KJ Lewis and Caleb Love are both on the roster, I will, like I said, I will gladly say that I was wrong, and I hope that I am wrong because it's certainly somebody that you want to add to the roster. But like I said, he's not really addressing KJ Lewis as being there. And I fully expect KJ Lewis to be back. And we were talking about time frames. I would expect within the next 7 to 8, 9 days, we're going to have total clarity on what this roster will look like as far as returning players come back. Caleb Love obviously went off to Caleb Love was obviously in Chicago, didn't play great. And like I said, I don't see him being drafted, but I would expect him to come back, and I would fully expect KJ Lewis to come back. KJ, I think, will be here for one more year, and then I think KJ is going to burst onto the national scene, and I think he is going to be a problem that everybody is going to have to watch. I think he is the best NBA prospect on the team, and I think he's going to be an easy first-round pick after another year, just from that athleticism perspective, from the ability to get downhill, and from defensive. I mean, that's what a shooting guard in the NBA looks like. Now, again, there's certain things that he's got to continue to work on. Obviously, the ball handling, the shooting, but I think that he's got more than enough capabilities in those regards to be able to do that. Okay, now, tomorrow we're going to talk some Arizona baseball. Chip Hale. I think he's pretty much locked up the coach of the year in the conference. A lot of people were out on Chip Hale. I was number one of those people. So, again, I will bask in the glory of that. But joking aside, Chip Hale has done a very good job in Arizona baseball, especially with pitching coach Kevin Vance. Been very, very impressive as well. They deserve a lot of talk in that next episode, and they will get that talk. But on that note, though, as always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. We will be back with you tomorrow talking some Arizona baseball. Bear down, back the A. Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day.